Hello, everybody. It's me, the Lego Dude, and we're now beginning with the live stream. I was a couple minutes late. I had to finish getting everything set up for the stream, and of course, we also had to finish going over everything that had happened with the football match just now between France and England, as you can tell from the thumbnail. So we'll just be getting started in a couple minutes with the build. We'll build a couple bags. This stream is not going to be too long like the other ones. Maybe an hour. We'll go for an hour. We'll build 2 or 3 bags and discuss the game and the World Cup final tomorrow. So hello, thank you for joining in. Hello, thank you for everybody who's joining into the stream. It's good to see you here. So we'll be getting started with the stream then. If anybody has any questions, we'll be answering them as we go. For now, though, we'll just get everything situated here. And we're going to be starting off with bag 14. So let's just get the camera oriented correctly and so we can begin the build. First comment coming in. Do you think it was a suspicious match? For this match's officiating, I don't think it was suspicious. If it was, well, there's no calls that I consider suspicious. Most of the calls seem to be quite reasonable, and if there wasn't any much of a reason for it to have referees who have been paid off anyway, because it was just for the third place title. Oh, one moment, please. We need to go get one of the pieces that we dropped. Hello, everybody. We are back after that slight delay. Sorry about that. We just dropped a piece on the floor, so we need to come back and get it. So let's read back through the comments now. See, I mean, not by the ref side, but between the teams. Well, between the teams, in terms of suspicious, the match did seem quite odd, of course, how it went from, well, I guess we can start off talking about it a little bit. The match began between France and England. And in the first half, England went straight out into a 4-0 lead, which is basically never seen before, I think, at World Cup matches or at many matches, to be honest. So England raced in a 4-0 lead in the first half. Going into the second half, it looked like France would be absolutely pummeled and would lose this match with the highest margin they ever had at the World Cup. But then they came back with 3 goals before England put one on the board. France responded, and then England scored the last one to make it 6-4. So if you mean suspicious in between the two teams, of course the match did seem mildly suspicious from just how everything was going on, but I doubt that the two teams would have reached any agreement to make it more exciting, if that's what you mean by your question. Good game, yes. It was a very excellent game. Goals all around. The goals themselves don't always make the game that exciting, but it was quite exciting all around, even discounting the goals. it's just unfortunate for both of these teams that this was only basically a loser's trophy for who's the best for third place. Mbappe was talking about something at halftime with Tuchel and was smiling the entire game. Yes, I did see that during the broadcast of the game as well. That part was, of course, quite odd and unusual, I'd say, considering that I don't think that. Well, actually, now that I think about it, I do think that Thomas Tuchel managed Mbappe at PSG. So even though it was definitely quite odd for Mbappe to be talking with Tuchel when France were 4-0 down, and I don't think it was the best decision making. I do think they have a prior relationship, so Mbappe might have just been trying to catch up with Tuchel a bit while they were both on the football pitch. Mbappe would get his golden boot and England would win since 1966. Yes, Mbappe scoring 2 today is most likely to win the golden boot now, and this is England's best performance since 1966. So I do definitely see what you're saying there, how both teams could have, maybe if not formally agreed, could have very at least in a relaxed manner decided that it would make sense if England wins and then Mbappe can score a couple goals. However, I didn't get the feel of that based off how the first half went, as France did seem completely out of ideas in the first half. It's not something I discount, of course, because it definitely was something you could consider before the match, how it would work out for both of them if England won, having their best performance since 1966, and then if Mbappe was allowed to score a couple goals for him to most likely win the Golden Boot race, unless Messi scores 2 goals in the World Cup final. However, I just don't see it based off the I just can't quite see it. So right now, for everybody just tuning in, we're talking about the World Cup third place match between France and England, and we're also building bag 14 of the Lego World Cup. Okay, we have another comment coming in. Especially how Bellingham and Kane didn't play while the most goals were scored, not overtake Mbappe accidentally. This is definitely a reasonable point to consider. It would have been expected that Bellingham or Kane would have been played for England in the hopes of potentially getting them the golden boot. So it was quite odd at the start of the match when you could see that neither of them was being played. Oh, it does look like we have a small issue here. One of the pieces, it looks like we didn't get all the pieces that we dropped earlier. One of the pieces is missing. Well, this is quite unfortunate. We might have to take another short break so I can go and investigate where the piece may have fallen. Let's see. We'll try to build it as if we can for a couple more steps, but yeah, looks like another short break might be in order. Oh no, never mind. The piece was found over here, just on the other side of the building area, so we won't have to stop anymore. Just try to get this piece off now. Unfortunately, we put it on incorrectly. We have another few comments coming in. Thank you for showing up for the live stream. At least I'm glad Tuchel didn't park the bus after Rice scored in the 3rd minute. Yes, definitely. It's definitely good that Tuchel didn't just decide to park the bus in the 3rd minute, which of course definitely would have been hilarious, of course, for all the neutrals and opposition fans. But then for England fans especially, that would have been extremely disappointing considering what England just did when they were facing Argentina a few days ago. One thing to consider, though, that is definitely going to rile some feathers, I guess you could say, is that England used some of the tactics today that they should have used when they were facing Argentina. For example, I'm pretty sure they played Rashford and Saka, and if England had used Saka, had subbed Saka on for Gordon, for example, instead of subbing on center backs to play defensively, there's definitely not a small chance that they could have played quite well versus Argentina and seen out a narrow victory. Instead of going with the defensive substitutions, which ultimately resulted in England losing to Argentina. But yeah, as we can see here, this match was completely different for the most part, with the both teams attacking quite openly and then defending quite poorly, especially France in the first half, which we'll get to in a second. So He realized 1-0 lead isn't enough. Yes, unfortunately for England, of course, he realized that after the most important match. But at the very least, England fans at least will be hoping that Tuchel will have improved his tactics after this World Cup. And as Tuchel is most likely going to be leading England into the 2028 Euros and the 2030 World Cup, they'll be hoping that he'll have improved his tactics and adjusted them to account for situations like this instead of trying to play defensively with a 1-0 lead and parking the bus with half an hour to go. He didn't park the bus at all, actually. Yes, England played quite openly, and even when they had conceded 3 goals to France, instead of just trying to hunker down for a 4-3 win, they kept attacking and were able to score another couple of goals. France, as well, of course, did manage to score. However, England responded with goals of their own. So they still quite comfortably won 6-4, as we saw with the match, which, of course, is one of the most insane World Cup scorelines I think I've ever seen. If I just calling off the top of my head, there's only a couple matches I can think with as many goals scored because we had 10 goals scored here. The only one that I can think of right now is from, I think, the World Cup in 1954, Switzerland versus Germany, which ended 7-5. That had 12 goals involved in it. I know there's a couple other matches. Oh, of course, there's Hungary versus El Salvador, which had 11 goals included in it, but let's not talk about that. So that's 11 goals in that match. And other than that, only a couple other matches have had as many goals. So this was definitely quite the goal fest, you could say. So apparently we're supposed to make this same bit 4 times. So we'll go ahead and do that. So analyzing the lineups. Oh, we have another comment coming in. So we'll read that first and then see what, talk a little bit more about the match. There was also a very suspicious Bellingham moment where he played like Sorloth from Norway and didn't shoot up until too late. If that did happen, I can't quite recall where it happened in the match, but if he did do that then as well, then that's definitely quite interesting. However, I think that for that instance, it might quite possibly have just been Bellingham playing poorly after being subbed on. Because we did see at the end of the match when Bellingham didn't pass at all, he just kept walking, trying to dribble through the French defense, and then he just tried to basically walk the ball into the goal, and that's how England scored their 6th goal. Definitely a possibility, of course, as that there was something there. However, I do think that it was a quite I can't quite think of the word. I think unsuspicious, I guess we'll go with. I don't think that was as big of an incident as, for example, some of the other things which did look a little strange, like when Mbappe went to go talk with Tuchel and some of the other things. So we have 10 viewers now. Thank you for everybody who's joining in the stream. We're not trying to keep it too long, of course. We'll build a couple bags. We'll keep reacting to this World Cup match with a field of questions, and then we'll call it a day after perhaps an hour. Just looking for a lost piece right now. Hopefully we didn't lose any more when they fell. So going a little bit more over the matches. Looking at the lineups for the matches, both teams featured some rotations. Both teams were knocked out of the World Cup, so they were both being sent home, basically. So they were more open to rotating their lineups. So another comment. Despite all of that, I doubt the final will be more entertaining. I definitely agree. The final, I have almost no doubts whatsoever that the final isn't going to end up being less entertaining than this. This match was a pretty open match between two teams who knew that they were already out of the World Cup and were content to just play insanely attacking football, which resulted in the absolute goal fest we saw today of 6-4. I'll be surprised if the final has any more than 2 goals, to be honest. But looking at the lineups again for this match, both teams featured rotations. France largely started the same midfield and attacking players as usual, with their front line consisting of Ousmane Dembele, Kylian Mbappe, and Michael Olise, and then their midfield consisting of Adrien Rabiot and Ryan Cherki. Cherki has usually been a substitute player for them, so it's good for him to be starting for France, as he is a high-quality player. Where France did rotate was in their back line and in further back in the midfield. they started Warren Zaire-Emery, who plays for PSG in midfield, and then along across the back line they started Malo Gusto, who plays for Chelsea, Ibrahim Konate, who just signed for Real Madrid, Maxence Lacroix, who plays for Crystal Palace, and Theo Hernandez, who I think he plays for AC Milan, if I recall correctly. And then in net, they started Mike Maignan. And definitely for their goalkeepers, their backup goalkeeper, Bryce Samba, is going to be disappointed he didn't get a match in here. He's been a quality player in League One and Liga, and then he was also an excellent player in the Championship when he was playing for Nottingham Forest, and it was the reason they got promoted. So he's definitely been a high-quality player for the past several years, and is going to be disappointed he didn't even get a shout-out here in this third-place match to have a couple of minutes. But that was France's lineup. Partially rotated, but largely the same number of attacking players as usual. Probably because they wanted Mbappe to have a chance at winning the Golden Boot by starting all their best attacking players. Just make sure we have all the pieces up here. Those appear that we've added in all the necessary pieces. Always trouble with missing some. We have another comment coming in. Wasn't Dembele on the bench before halftime? Dembele actually started the match. Oh, no, actually, you're wrong. You're right. Thank you for pointing that out for me. I was reading the lineups wrong. Doué was the one who had started for France. So they did rotate a little bit in the front line as well. Thank you for pointing that out to make sure that there wasn't any inaccurate information there. Yeah, he was substituted. He substituted Cherki. That's right. I think Cherki got injured or was just substituted off because I saw him later on. He was just on the sideline sitting there. So I'm not sure if it was an injury or he was just subbed off from fatigue. But yeah, Dembele didn't come on until later. France did start within their front line Desiree Doué. So there was some slight rotation there as well. Just making sure we have all the pieces correct here because it is a little bit of an odd build. So we're looking at England's lineup now. They had a similarly rotated lineup. They did start some of the same players. In their back line, they started a largely unchanged back line with Jed Spence at left back, Mark Gehi and Ezri Konsa as their pair of center backs, and then Jarrell Kwanzaa, who played the match after serving his 2-match suspension after a poor challenge for which he received a red card in the Mexico versus England match. He was obviously hoping that he would get to play for England in the World Cup final, but unfortunately for him, he just got to play in a third-place match. Then in midfield, England had started again with Declan Rice, and they rotated a bit as well by starting Eberechi Eze, Marcus Rashford, Morgan Rogers, and Bukayo Saka further up, and then they rotated out Harry Kane for Ivan Toney up front. Another comment coming in. Cherki finished the third or fourth goal. Maybe that's why he got subbed off. I can't quite recall if Cherki scored or assisted today, so we'll just check that real quick for the information. So let's just look up and we see if we can see Cherki. Did he receive any assists today? It doesn't look like Cherki had any assists or goals. So I might be misunderstanding the question, but so yeah, Cherki did not score as far as I could tell. So looking at the lineups again, though, they were half rotated from each side. And then so going into the match, I was expecting, I can't recall my prediction quite well, but I think I expected France to win this 2-1. I was expecting both teams to mostly be checked out, England especially to be checked out, as they were hoping to get to their first World Cup final in 60 years, and they absolutely crashed out. So out of the two teams, I was expecting England to be more basically already on. Oh, one more thing we should mention before the continuing the preview. One player who was left out of England's squad for this match was Kobbie Mainoo, the Manchester United midfielder. It was kind of expected that he would get some minutes here because it was a third place match, so they'd at least give him a run out. But apparently he had an injury They say injury. Of course, it could also be a fallout with the manager, but right now it's considered that he was left out due to a minor injury, which is why he wasn't included in the squad. So that's definitely something worth mentioning as well for England. It's unknown now if he's actually it is known. Actually, he's been released to vacation already for his summer vacation that the footballers are entitled to. So of course that's an interesting tidbit that should be mentioned. Next comment: England's ball bounced off from Turkey and got into the France goal. Uh, oh, of course, you mean as a own goal. I can't quite recall. There was just so many goals scored that I couldn't keep up with all of them. I might have even missed the first one, but I do think if that did happen, then that is definitely a reason they could have subbed off Turkey. Because it was a third place match, of course, not too high stakes. So if he did something like that, they might have just been ready to go on to the next player just to give everybody some minutes. It wasn't counted as an own goal though. Yes, definitely that can happen. I think when the shots are already on target, but it's just that it takes a slight deflection off the player. So that would probably be why it was counted as a goal instead of an own goal. So I was saying, I kind of expected that out of the two teams that England would be the more lackluster, lackadaisical due to their heartbreaking performance that resulted in them getting knocked out right before the World Cup final. It was definitely heartbreaking for them because they would have been hoping to get through the Argentina side, who are widely considered to be weaker than the last 4 years, and they were weaker today than they were in the last 4 years. So I was expecting England to just not show up at all. However, I was incorrect, as France were the ones who just looked like they didn't want to be there the most. In fact, I do think that before the match, France's manager said that basically none of them wanted to be there, which is kind of a how do you call it? Foreshadowing. It was kind of foreshadowing for what was to occur. So as the match began, it didn't. Nothing looked out of the ordinary for the first couple minutes. It was a reasonable match, and then England struck first with a goal from Declan Rice from outside the box. So it was a very well taken goal, of course. And after that, England just were on the ascendancy. So after that goal from Declan Rice, England just kept scoring. In the 18th minute, they scored from on a header from their center back Ezri Konsa. He'll of course be happy to get a goal there. As a center back, it's always rare to score goals. So even scoring one in a World Cup, even in a match which is basically doesn't mean anything, it'll definitely be very nice, and it'll say that in the history records as well for him. But yeah, England center back Ezri Konsa scored a very nice header off a corner, making it 2-0. And then after that, it just devolved in further chaos, with England scoring another goal from Bukayo Saka, and then another goal from Bukayo Saka right before the halftime break. And then as we went into the halftime break, it was 4-0, which was an absolutely insane scoreline. France are widely considered to be among the two best teams in the world, even though they only got to the semifinals. The only team that might be considered to be better than them is Spain, perhaps, now that they've beaten them, or I guess you could say Argentina, since they're the reigning world champions. However, just going off of talent alone, most people would pretty much agree that France are the best team in the world. So seeing them losing to England 4-0 at halftime was absolutely shocking. It was definitely something that most people were not expecting at all, me as well included. I expected France to win this match. However, as well, of course, something I forgot to mention, this was the farewell match for France's manager of 14 years, Didier Deschamps. He's been managing France since 2012, and after this World Cup, he had planned to retire from the French national team as their manager, instead letting Zinedine Zidane take over as his replacement. So that made this match especially shocking, and as it was thought that the French players would at least try to put in some effort to give their manager a good send-off. However, as we can see, that didn't happen in the first half. So after that horrific first half performance from France, where they were losing 4-0, they came out of the half. They came out for the second half a lot more energized. I'm assuming the manager must have given them some sort of rinsing down or pep talk, or who knows, whatever managers do to make the players play harder during the second half. And then France came out in the second half a lot more energized for the most part. They were playing a lot better, and they were in the ascendancy versus England. Now, this didn't mean much because they were 4-0 down. However, they definitely put up a bit of a fight that was quite interesting for neutral viewers. So just making sure we have all the pieces in place now. A few of them can get a bit loose. So in the second half, France came out being the better team, and then we saw that when after only a couple minutes in the 48th minute, Kylian Mbappe scored a very nicely taken goal, making it 4-1. When he scored this goal, of course, we were all thinking it was a consolation goal, but it wasn't quite that. A few minutes later, in the 54th minute, Bradley Barcola curled in a very excellent goal from the corner of the box to make it 4-2. At this point, France were playing extremely well, and it was looking like they could actually do something interesting here. And so, in typical fashion, they did go ahead and put up a fight. They just a few minutes later, they scored a third goal from Kylian Mbappe to make it 4-3, which is it could have been, if they had seen it through to win, it would have been the greatest comeback in not World War history, and World Cup history. Just to go over a little bit of background, the biggest comeback ever in World Cup history occurred, I believe, at the 1958 World Cup, where Portugal were losing 3-0 to North Korea before coming back and rallying to win 5-3. Now, so the greatest comeback in World Cup history was to come from 3-0 down. So if France had been able to see this through and managed to come back from 4-0 down, it would have been utterly remarkable. That wasn't to be, though, as after France scored their third goal, they gave away a penalty to England, which was definitely very unfortunate for France. They had been in the ascendancy for the wide part of the second half, and it was genuinely looking like they could mount an insane comeback. As is typical, though, their Chelsea left back Malo Gusto gave away a quite ridiculous penalty on the edge of the box with a sliding challenge on I forgot who it was on, but it was still quite a ridiculous challenge, giving away a penalty to England. And then England promptly took this penalty and put it away without much trouble for Bukayo Saka to finish his hat trick. Definitely looks like we could have misplaced a couple pieces here, so we're just gonna have to take a look here because some of the pieces seem to be a little bit off. If we did build this incorrectly, that would be quite unfortunate. That goes there. Right. That goes there. It's a bit of a confusing build looking at it. 1, 2. We're definitely going to have to take it apart. Oh, not like that. We're definitely going to have to look inside a little bit to see what direction exactly we built this into. Could have been the completely incorrect direction. As of so far, it appears to be correct. So, I see what the issue is. We built on the incorrect side. We're putting all the tiling pieces on the wrong side. In which case, we're going to have to redo part of the build, which is unfortunate. So we're going to get the brick separator, of course, and hopefully it can help us. We're up to 12 viewers now. This is probably the most viewers we had in a stream at one time. So thank you to everybody who's tuning in for tuning into the stream. So we're just taking off these pieces right now because unfortunately we put them on the incorrect side. I got the thing messed up while we were talking, so I flipped it around. I'm just going to take it off screen a second so that we can do it closer. So looking at the next comment now, just so we can keep talking, I think it's somewhat embarrassing for France to play a third place match since they've been in finals 4 times since 1998. So maybe the morale was low. Definitely, that definitely could have been a reason why it was ended up so poorly for them. As France, for the most part, they either get to the final or they don't. They've crashed out early in 2002 in the group stages, if I recall correctly. In 2010, they had a disastrous World Cup, crashing out in the group stages. And then in 2014, they reached the quarterfinals. I think I could be wrong on that, but I think they only reached the quarterfinals. Now, almost every time they've reached the semifinals before, they get the job done and get to the final. In 1998, they made it to the final. In 2006, they made it to the final. In 2018, they won the World Cup, and then in 2022, they made it to the final again. So it definitely could be the disappointment of just not even making it to the final that saw France be the most lackadaisical team when they, the more lackadaisical team when they were playing the bronze match. Unfortunately, these pieces are proving a bit difficult to take out, so this might take a while. For now, though, we can just look at some of the other pieces that we built incorrectly. Definitely quite unfortunate. Okay, we managed to take off another piece. That's good. Let's look at the next comment. Wasn't the 1966 World Cup? Yes. I'm not sure how good France did at the 1966 World Cup. I'm mostly focused on, for example, I know who the winner of that World Cup was, but that was England, for example. That was the last time England won the World Cup. They have made it to 2 semifinals since then. I think they made it to the semifinal in the 90s. I think 1990. I'm not quite sure about that, but they definitely made it to the semifinals then. And they made it to the semifinals in 2018. And then, of course, this year as well when they lost to Argentina. So England do have a history of losing in the semifinals. And then they also have a history of losing the third place match, though, to be fair. So I thought they would continue that trend. But it looks here like, well, obviously that didn't happen. So this is actually England's best performance at a World Cup since 1966 when they won it. That'll, of course, be a small consolation for England fans. However, it is statistically correct. Just one more piece to remove before we can continue with the build. Let's see. Jed Spence won the penalty. Yes, thank you for mentioning that. I had forgotten who won it. I remember now, though. Thanks to you for reminding me. So yes, it was Jed Spence who won the penalty. I think he was on a run down the left wing. I think he had come all the way from deep from his defender's position, and he was able to draw the foul and the sliding tackle from Malo Gusto. So unfortunately, in trying to take off this piece, it looks like it's getting a bit chipped. So hopefully we'll be able to get it off in a couple seconds. So with good fortune, we were finally able to get those pieces off. So we can redo the part of the build now. It's very unfortunate, but I don't think the only issue was that it was flipped around at the top part. So we're going to have to unflip that. So of course we have to take off a few more pieces. That'll be quite tedious, but we'll get the job done. So of course we can see here the brick separator is doing its work. I know it does look like I'm advertising the brick separator for Lego, which is hilarious, but it's just a very useful tool for when you have situations like these. Next. About 1966 World Cup. I meant the comeback of Portugal from North Korea. France. Oh, yes, I do recall now. Thank you for mentioning that again. Thank you for correcting my facts. France lost in the group stage then. I remember. It was 1966 because I think the controversy then for North Korea was that due to political reasons, England did not want to let North Korea into the World Cup, and FIFA had to threaten to strip the hosting rights from England so that they would let North Korea in. And so that's when the match between North Korea and Portugal happened. So thank you for bringing that up. And then I also just remembered that other little tidbit now that was interesting. Love your videos. Thank you. I appreciate it a lot. So it looks like we fixed up everything that we messed up on in that step, so we can continue now with the build. Right, it definitely looks like this makes a lot more sense with how the build's going. So let's just try not to mess that up again, because it's gonna take a long time to fix. As you just saw, we wasted a lot of time just putting all those pieces back on. And it does look like we've messed up again, because some of the pieces are just not in the correct order. It looks like we're just missing a stud completely from here. So we're going to have to get that worked out. So we might as well just take off the entire top layer so we can see what's underneath, because otherwise we're not going to get this done. All right, so about the penalty then, let me just make sure all these pieces are on correctly before we discuss that. For this World Cup, was that penalty soft? I do think that the penalty was a little bit soft. When I saw the challenge at first, it looked like a very poor tackle. However, looking upon the replay, it didn't look that bad. However, based off the other penalties that have been given so far this World Cup, I do think that the penalty that England earned from the foul on Jed Spence, I do think it was a penalty because Malo Gusto did miss the ball. His foot went completely over, and then he just took out Jed Spence's foot. Definitely, though, I could see an argument for him having slightly touched the ball first, but then it becomes a bit more of a, I guess you could say, pedantics, right? Because if Malo Gusto just barely touched the ball and then he absolutely clatters Jed Spence, then I do still think that that should be a penalty. However, it was kind of soft because, again, he didn't absolutely clatter Jed Spence. Jed Spence did sell it, of course, but Malo Gusto did still make contact. If that's the penalty you're talking about, of course. If you mean a different penalty, then I'm not quite sure. But for that penalty, that's what I think. So we're finally building everything correctly now, as we can see. So hopefully we won't have too many problems with this. We don't want to be here for too long. It's already been 40 minutes and we're still on the first bag. We'll try to get one more bag done so we can finish up the stream tomorrow for the World Cup final. So it looks like we're finally on the right track here. And we should have no more issues with this bag after this one. I think this part goes on top of the World Cup. We'll be finding out in a few seconds. And we have another couple comments coming in. Yes, I mean that one. It's still miles better than the one Spain got against France. Yes, the Spain penalty versus France. I do think that was a penalty. Of course, it's just unfortunate that it was soft for sure. But of course, it's always difficult when you have soft penalties because by the letter of the law, they might be a penalty, right? So you might look at them and be like, well, I don't think that's a penalty, but then by the letter of the law, it's they do end up being penalties. So it's always quite controversial when it comes to that type of penalty. And it appears that we've built the entire thing wrong again because we forgot to switch the sides. So again, we'll do this one more time and hopefully we won't get that wrong again. In fact, it appears that we've put the incorrect, the reason we got it wrong is because we put the incorrect yellow piece on that side. So we'll do this one more time and hopefully it'll turn out correctly this time because it's definitely getting a little bit repetitive to build the same steps over and over again. It is amusing that I'm memorizing the steps as they go, so I might not even look at the instructions too much for this one. Right, so looking at this again, this is where we're at so far. This is the green side, so it needs to be over here. And then here is the yellow side. So we'll just hopefully be getting these pieces worked out real quick. We have a few more comments coming in. Let's read them as we go. Such penalties shouldn't be awarded at a World Cup. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily opposed because I think a lot of soft penalties do need to be more strictly handled when it comes to the World Cup. However, as it does stand so far, they are penalties under the letter of the law. So it's not anything that I would consider, for example, to be a corruption, if you will, because under the letter of the law, it probably does count as a penalty. Ending too soon. We're not ending quite yet. We do plan to finish another bag after this one. It's just that, well, the original plan was to finish 3 bags, but that plan has unfortunately been scuttled by the fact that we had to keep redoing parts from this one. So it should do the trick now. It looks like we fixed up everything that was incorrectly built about this, and we should now be able to pursue completing this bag. And a comment coming in. So far, getting a lot of info from this. Thank you. I appreciate it very much, and I'm happy that you're getting a lot of information from the stream. What do you think about Lego stickers? I always mess them up, and usually they end up sticking not the best. Definitely, I agree with that sentiment. For how much that that Lego sets on average cost these days, the fact that a lot of the details are stickers instead of being printed is definitely a big letdown from Lego. A good example is with the UCS Venator they released a couple years ago. It cost $800, but for some reason it had added stickers as the Republic logos instead of having actual printed Republic logos. It appears we've dropped a piece. We'll get that real quick. Okay, the piece has been retrieved, but yeah. Going on about the stickers again, it's quite disappointing when so many stickers are included just because of how poorly the detailing can go. For example, two main examples I look at is just first, like you mentioned, just putting them on can be quite difficult. So the fact that they do still include the stickers in such expensive sets is something that I would say is ludicrous. And then another factor we have to consider is the fact that sometimes the stickers are just not good and not accurate and don't fit the set. Some examples I would like to look at are with Lego Star Wars sets, where sometimes the stickers just don't match the color of the vehicle they're on. So you'll have a white vehicle, and then instead of including white stickers with the detailing on it to match them, you'll have stickers that have a off gray color, which messes up with the design of the ship because of the stickers off color. So yeah, when it comes to stickers, I'm not a big fan. I do think they have some applications, of course, but as often as they are included, I'm not a big fan of that. So it looks like we finally have this bag just about wrapped up. Hopefully I haven't just caused... Yeah, but hopefully the bag is wrapped up now. So hopefully there'll be no more issues. Appears we just had a small issue, but we can just take that piece off easily. So it does look like we are finally close to finishing up with this build. It's very, very good to see. And now we get to enjoy putting on all the shiny detailing again and hope that we put it on correctly. So let's just try to get this done the right way this time. Definitely a lot of very tricky pieces to put on here, because then if we put them on incorrectly, it's a lot harder to get these smooth ones off with the brick separator. Doing good so far. It looks like we're going to be all good here. And we're done with that step now, so we can go look at the comments again. So here we have one from, especially the smaller ones. Yes, the stickers, that definitely more stuff I agree with about stickers. I wish they began printing the designs. Completely in agreement with you. I always have problems with those that go on 1x2 flat diagonal pieces. I'm not sure how it's called. I think they're just called, I think the 1x2 diagonal pieces, I think what you mean is the cheese slopes. I think that's what they're called. And definitely I agree. Those ones are always extremely tough to put on. And so definitely with how tough they are to put on and how printed pieces would just be much better. I think that Lego should put in an effort to make more printed pieces. Otherwise, we're left with the stickers, which first off are more likely to be inaccurate, and then second off are much harder to put on correctly. So let's say they are accurate, and it's harder to put them on in such a way that they are represented as accurate. One moment here, please, as I figure out whatever it is with the pieces that go in here. It appear to be bamboozling me for a second. So it looks like this one should go here. And then it looks like I should put this one there and that one there. And that appears to be correct from what I can see. Just bear with me as we put these on, because it's definitely a very complex build here. These last bags are going to be a bit more difficult than the first ones. So looks like we're just about done with this one, and that's very well taken care of. Now we can shift up the camera and we can try to get it added on here. So we'll take a look at the World Cup, what side it's supposed to go on. It appears it's supposed to go on the back side, so we'll put that on. And now we have one side of the World Cup completed. We'll do one more bag and then we'll be done for the day. Unfortunately, some pieces fell again, so we'll go get these real quick. So hopefully that's all the pieces that fell. Otherwise, we're going to be looking for a while. But I do think that we are going to be all good for this last bag to be built. So let's not mess about here and try to get this done. Let's just go back down here so we can continue watching the build. All right, next comment coming in. It's not even that difficult to print them after all. They do print details on minifigures. I completely agree with that. They print the details just fine on the minifigures usually, and that just makes it more irritating that they don't print it when it comes to the builds. Especially when you consider the fact that LEGO have put out statements before saying that they do prioritize how the builds look over the minifigures, in which case they should be prioritizing giving the builds prints instead of having them be stickered, which is always a very poor detailing. Oh, it's not always very poor detailing, but it's always very frustrating detailing to see present. Looking at the comments again, we have a couple more. Would be ridiculous if they made them stickers too. Yes, that would definitely be ridiculous. If they end up making minifigure stickers. That would definitely be, I guess you could say, a death knell for Lego, because that would just about be the worst decision they can make. So hopefully they do never get the idea to do that just to save a few cents. So one more comment coming in. We have 13 viewers now. Thank you to everybody who's watching. I really enjoy the way you put together small Lego pieces with so much patience. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. We definitely have to try to be patient here. Otherwise, we can end up with situations like with the previous bag where it gets a little bit dicey when it comes to adding in all the detailing. So we have to be careful there. Otherwise, we'll be here redoing everything for quite a while. So we've been streaming for just under an hour now, and is there anybody just coming in? We're going to be finishing up after this bag. We finished talking about the France versus England match that finished 6-4, and I guess we should talk a little bit about the World Cup final now. So we have another comment coming in. Do you think Lego has anyone close to the market? I remember there was a company which used bigger and more rounded minifigures with bigger building blocks and more mature topics. I'm not sure about any companies that use more mature topics. What specifically? However, we're talking bigger and different type building blocks, and there's a Mega Blocks, for example. There's other types of Lego type building kits from China, for example, and then there's a couple of other big ones. I think there's a couple you can find on Walmart or whatnot. But so just speaking of that, I do think that Lego, for the most part, has the building blocks market cornered. There's not really any other building blocks which compares to Lego, in the sense that Lego are a very well-respected brand, and for basically any theme they sell, it always sells well and sells better than any close competitors. For example, no matter what, basically, I'd say that any Lego Star Wars set is definitely going to end up selling better than Lego Mega Blocks, for example. Lego Star Wars, no, not Lego Mega Blocks, than Star Wars Mega Blocks or Duplo blocks, just off the base of the name. So looking at the World Cup final a bit now, it's going to be taking place. I already predicted that, I think, the other day, but it's going to be taking place between England and no, not England, Spain and Argentina tomorrow at about, if I recall, it's about 11:30 Pacific time, which is about 2:30 Eastern time, and I think that's sometime about 8 p.m. in Europe. So for any Spanish people, it would be around the evening. So this match is going to be taking place between Spain and Argentina, the two highest-ranked teams in the world, and they have both proved how excellent they are as teams with their routes to the World Cup final. Argentina performed well in the group stages and then mounted excellent comebacks versus the likes of Cape Verde and Egypt to make it to the World Cup semifinal, where they were then able to vanquish England, where they also staged a great comeback. So they're going to be feeling a bit confident coming into this match off the back of their upset. And Spain, on the other hand, had a decent group stage with a notable draw versus Cape Verde before relatively easily cruising to the final, with easy wins versus Austria, a bit more of a tight win versus Portugal, and then simple wins, a bit more of a tight win versus Belgium, and then an easy win versus France in the semifinal. So looking at the match now, I've already predicted it, so I will predict it again. I think that Argentina are just about going to get past Spain, and that Argentina will win the World Cup final 1-0. I think both teams are extremely high quality. I have nothing bad to say about either team. However, I think that Argentina just have a little bit more of the edge when it comes to the World Cup final. And I think they're going to be able to pull it off and get 2 World Cups in a row. The first team to do so since, when was the last team to do such a thing? I think it was, oh, it'd have to be Brazil, wouldn't it? In 1958, 1962. Unless, perhaps Argentina, I know, perhaps Germany did something similar, but that's the last team I can think of that won 2 World Cups in a row. So we have another couple comments coming in. What would be ridiculous if a match ended on 1-0 with the penalties? Yes, that would be an absolutely hilarious penalty shootout. That would basically be the most comically bad penalty shootout in history, and it'd definitely be talked about as a legendary game forever. Because then you'd have 5 players for one team missing a penalty, and then 4 players for the other team missing a penalty, with just them scoring the one last one. Or they could just all miss the penalties, and then it goes to the extra time penalties, in which case it would still be just as hilarious, because then that would result in even more players missing. Just making sure we got all the pieces correct here. We don't want to end up like a situation in the last build. So we'll use the brick separator here again. It does look like we might have forgotten a couple pieces, so we'll get those back in. Definitely a bit of a tricky build, but it looks like we got all the pieces. Hopefully we aren't missing any. Let's see. Italy did it in 34-38. Thank you for reminding me about that statistic and for putting it up here. So I'll leave the comment up for a second. Yes, Italy did do it in 1934-38. It was just I couldn't quite put my finger on when it was or which team did it. But yes, but the most recent previous team to do it was Brazil in 1958 and 1962. So yes, that is a record Argentina would break if they were to win tomorrow's World Cup final. And a record that either team is going to break if they win tomorrow is being the first team in the 21st century to win 2 World Cups. So far in the 21st century, there's been a different winner at every World Cup. So whichever team does it tomorrow is going to be the first team ever to win it twice in the 21st century. Spain in 2010 and potentially 2026, and Argentina in 2022 and potentially 2026. So again, it does look like we might have missed a couple pieces here. Let's just make sure that we don't beat around the bush and get them all in if we need to. All right, it's taken care of now. Definitely a bit of a complex build here, so let's make sure not to get any pieces in here wrong. We'll be finishing up the stream soon. But it does look like we have everything in the correct order. So, no, I mean 1-0 with the penalty in normal time, like... Oh, I see what you mean. So if a penalty was received in normal time by a team, and then they just, for example, parked the bus and then rode out with a 1-0 win, that as well would be quite a hilarious scenario. It wouldn't be hilarious for the losing team, of course. However, for the winning team, it would be. I think one example that we did just see recently was France's win versus Paraguay, where they won 1-0 with a penalty from Mbappe in the 75th minute. So that was less dramatic, of course, because it was a lower level. It was a round of 16 match. However, it definitely still captures the same essence, I think, of what you were trying to mention there. So it looks like we're not having as much trouble with this bag, which is nice. So as opposed to being exactly the same as the last bag, this bag was actually a little bit different. I did kind of expect it to be the same because it's another part of the globe part on top, but I guess it did have some different pieces to add on. I do apologize if I'm not responding to all the chats on time. I'm just trying to make sure that we're getting on all the pieces on correctly. I may even have the microphone near the instructions just so we have a better pickup of the audio. So another, I guess, interesting statistic is that with Mbappe's 2 goals in today's third-place matchup, he is now the player to score the most goals at a World Cup since Gerd Müller at the if I recall correctly, at the 1970 tournament, or perhaps the tournament after or before that. Gerd Müller scored 10 goals at that tournament for West Germany, and Mbappe is the first to match that since then. It does look like we made a very slight error here. It does look very easily fixable. We just have to take all these and shift them up one. So looking at the comments again now, we have a few coming in. Let's take a look. This time it'll be Argentina getting it for sure. As you are confident that they'll get it, I am also confident that Argentina will end up winning this one. And if that they do that, then of course, then they'll win their back-to-back World Cups. And this also gives Messi, of course, the opportunity to match the record that Mbappe just matched, and then to break it as well. So what Messi would have to do is to score a brace in the World Cup final to win the Golden Boot of this World Cup and match Gerd Muller's record from the 1970 World Cup. This would also set Messi clearly at the top as the highest World Cup goal scorer in history with 23 goals, as opposed to Mbappe, who has 21 right now, currently tied with Messi. All right, which came out first, the small Legos or the Mega Legos? I do think that this mainline type of Lego from a Lego company are the first ones to be created. All right, this is going to be very complicated with the small detailing. Bear with me for a second. Definitely a bit of a complicated build here. I know I've said that a few times already, but this is especially very complex. All right, we finished the next set of slopes added to here. So let's take a look at the comments again. I'm trying to read them at a reasonable pace, but yeah, we do got to get up with these pieces. I'm definitely the right class. In the right class. Thank you. I think he needs to score 2 goals and an assist. Well, I do think that Messi is ahead of Mbappe on assists, unless I counted incorrectly. I don't think Mbappe got any more than 1 assist at this match. But assuming your statistics are correct, then yes, Messi would need Argentina to score at least 3 during the match to win the Golden Boot. And that's just something I don't really see happening. At most, I can see 2 goals during that match, because they would be equal and Mbappe has less playtime. Thank you for pointing that out too. But yeah, Mbappe, as of so far, does have less playtime. Well, actually, if we take a look at it, I'm pretty sure in the 3rd match of the World Cup, Messi wasn't playing until the 80th minute when he was substituted on versus Jordan. But however, Argentina did play 1 extra time. 2 extra. Was it 2 extra? It was 2 extra times, right? Versus Switzerland and Cape Verde. No, yeah, Switzerland and Cape Verde, as opposed to France, who played no extra times. So I think that they're pretty close on minutes, actually. So that's something I'm not quite sure about, though. But yeah, if he has played less minutes than Messi, if Mbappe has played less minutes than Messi, then yes, Messi would need that much to win the Golden Boot. And I meant that Argentina would be getting a penalty. It's definitely quite possible if they I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of controversy about Argentina getting a penalty, whether it's a penalty that is very cleanly awarded or potentially there's some controversy about it. It's definitely quite a high possibility. And if they do win a penalty, I do expect Argentina to go ahead with their park the bus strategy. So Argentina are also very big on parking the bus sometimes. And then as we can see in previous matches, that hasn't worked out for them at the beginning when they've conceded, but then they always seem to manage to come back. So we'll see how that goes. Especially considering Spain's extremely high octane midfield, which is definitely going to be looking to attack Argentina. Well, they won't be doing the attacking. The forwards will, of course, but they'll be looking to get in behind. They'll play their passing lanes with three midfielders. However, Argentina, of course, are no slouches. They do flood the midfield with their strategy. They have four midfielders usually, which is probably the way to go versus Spain, if we're being honest. Spain are well known for their prowess in midfield, and it's definitely not worth just letting them have the pitch and letting them have free reign in the midfield. You need to make sure to keep them under control there. Otherwise, you're likely to lose, as we saw with France losing versus Spain. France only had two midfielders on the pitch versus Spain's extremely high-quality midfield, and we saw the results there with Spain absolutely dominating versus France. So it looks like we're getting close to finishing up here. Let's just make sure that we get into the final stretch correctly. Otherwise, we might be here for a while like we were last time. We've been streaming for about an hour and 17 minutes. Definitely an excellent stream, I'd say, so far. Thank you for all your comments. It does look like we're getting close to being done here. If anybody has any last second questions, make sure to ask them in the chat, and then we'll be finishing up the stream. All right, we finished with the bag now, and we'll put this on, and we'll answer this last question here, and then we'll finish up the stream. Let's just point the camera up now. Then we'll pop this on the front. It seems we're having some issues here. I'm not exactly sure where this is meant to go. Right there, probably. This is a bit fragile. Try to get this on one more time. And it looks like we were finally able to do it. Oh, no. We'll answer these last couple questions anyway while we try to put this on. If we can't put this on screen, then I'll try to put it on. I'll try to get this done off screen so that it's all prepared for the next live stream. So let's see. Mbappe plays 57 minutes more, so in case of early 2 goals for Messi, he can leave the pitch and get the golden boot. Definitely. I mean, if Argentina are racing to the lead within 57 minutes with their 2 goals from Messi, I do think they might consider doing that. However, of course, we also have to take into account that they might just be more concerned with winning the World Cup, and in that case, they might try to preserve things by keeping Messi on the pitch. Messi has played every minute for Argentina so far, so that's definitely something that they might do. I doubt he's scoring early goals against Spain, and then he'll get subbed off. Exactly, just like I said, and like you just mentioned now. I doubt Argentina would score that much that early, and then I also doubt Argentina would sub him off at all. So as it stands, we have now finished up with the live stream. Thank you to everybody who is. Let's make sure that's correct. All right. Thank you to everybody who's shown up for the stream today. We finished a couple of bags, and we'll be finishing the rest of the bags in the next one. So thank you to everybody in the comments who showed up for the stream. Thank you all for showing up, and I'll see you tomorrow after the World Cup final to react to the results of that. So thank you all for joining in. Thank you everybody in the comments, and I'll see you then.